Many people believe that calisthenics is really good for the joints because exercises like push-ups, pull-ups, dips, and bodyweight rows do not change in load as you get stronger and better at them. But I will say that many beginners will face themselves with joint problems doing calisthenics, especially joint inflammation. Calisthenics is filled with mostly compound exercises that use multiple joints. Most of these exercises, despite using multiple joints, have an intention. When we do pull-ups, we intend to target our back, whether it be our lats or other small muscles. Therefore, the intention of doing pull-ups is for our back muscles. This makes a lot of people only see exercises based on intention. This perspective on intention blinds us to the role of antagonistic muscles in our body. The reality is that our body is made to work together and there is support for every single movement. Even in exercises where we only use one joint, in other words, isolation exercises, we still use unintended muscles. For example, in a simple bicep curl, our tricep still has a role in supporting the elbow flexion, even if the purpose of the triceps is to extend the elbow. A bicep curl involves both elbow flexion and extension, only that the load is focused on the elbow flexion. The proof that the tricep is being used is that it lengthens and shortens in a bicep curl. The same thing happens in a pull-up. You might feel more of your biceps, but your elbow is consistently bending and extending, therefore your tricep is also being used, even if only a little bit. You can test this by doing an antagonistic superset of push-ups and then do pull-ups with a pumped triceps and chest, and you will feel them in a pull-up. This doesn't mean that you cannot isolate a muscle or focus on it, but it means that in every pull-up, dip, push-up, and bodyweight row, you are using the same joints over and over. And here's where the problem comes. Most training programs are based on intention. What are you training today? Push-pull legs 6 days per week is nice because it prioritizes the recovery of your muscles. You always get 2 days of recovery for every muscle group. However, it completely ignores the role of antagonistic muscles and the use of joints. Tendons and ligaments do not recover at the same pace of muscles, and this is important when avoiding tendon inflammation or joint injuries. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of beginners. Monday we do 4 sets of dips and 4 sets of push-ups. Tuesday 4 sets of pull-ups and 4 sets of bodyweight rows. Wednesday we do a leg circuit training of squats, lunges, and variations of other exercises. If we see push-pull legs training not based on muscle groups but on joints, then we realize that we are using the elbow, shoulder, and scapula joint 2 days in a row under difficult loads. But it is not only that you're using the same joint 2 days in a row, but that antagonistic muscles need rest, are tired, and cannot support the joint fully, making the joint not only be used 2 days in a row, but they will need to work more in lack of full support from antagonistic muscles. Under push-pull leg, you might not have muscle group recovery issues, but you might face joint inflammation issues, especially elbow or shoulder. This will not happen overnight because it is the slow exposure to the constant 2 days in a row joint use that will slowly cause an injury. This doesn't necessarily make push-pull leg a bad training split because in the gym you can always switch the load to a more comfortable one that doesn't cause as much joint demand or damage. But the problem comes when you do a push-pull leg split in calisthenics as a beginner. Calisthenics has fixed loads. In other words, you cannot willingly change the load of a pull-up as in a lat pull-down without disadvantage or trade-offs. This means that dips and pull-ups will always be challenging to learn for complete beginners. Learning them means to go through a rough transition. For example, it is advised to learn the push-up and bodyweight row first to condition the muscles and joints before even attempting to learn dips and pull-ups. Thus, going from a push-up to learning your first dip is inevitably a rough transition because their load is different. If a beginner in calisthenics does a push-pull leg split and puts great effort and the load is challenging, then he might face joint issues because of the role of antagonistic muscles, the 2 days same joint use, and the rough transitions. This is especially true for complete beginners who might be overweight and sedentary, which only makes everything worse. This is way worse when you are trying to learn harder variations. Let's say the one-arm pull-up and simultaneously the one-arm push-up. If you follow a push-pull leg program and try to learn these 2 exercises at the same time, you will 99% face elbow tendon issues. If you are facing or want to avoid joint inflammation or issues, I want you to look into your program and instead of seeing it with muscle groups or exercise intention, I want you to look at the joints used and try to find if you're using the same joints 2 days in a row like in push-pull legs. If you do a push-pull legs or push-pull and you don't want to completely change your training, by simply adding a rest day between the push and pull day, you can eliminate these 2 days in a row joint use, making it push, rest, pull, legs. Or instead, you could do full body, rest, repeat, or upper lower and benefit from antagonistic supersets and circuit training. Full body and upper lower are great because it encourages the complete use of joints. For example, there are no restrictions which can allow you to fully train the extension and flexion of the elbow joint and then rest it completely. I personally believe that training the joints completely is really good for the joints. The key thing here is to avoid training the same joints 2 days in a row with high load or effort, even if the focus muscle groups used are different.